Hello everyone and welcome to Educare 247. This is the seventh lecture in the series on management and today we'll be covering MCQs related to directing. This lecture is important for RBI Grade B as well as SEBI Grade A 2020 examination. Now before moving forward, Educare 247 brings you SEBI Grade A 2020 crash course which features around 5000 plus MCQs with concise content and live doubt sessions. So you can log on to the website and apply coupon code SEBI to get 1500 rupees off on the course. Now before moving forward, let us understand more about the term directing. Directing is the process of instructing, guiding, motivating and leading the people in an organization to achieve its objectives. Directing is also called as activating by some authors. However, the term directing or direction is more common. Directing has the following features. It is an executing function of management, while other management functions discussed, such as planning, organizing, and staffing, set the platform for actions. Directing executes the actions, that is, it puts the actions into practice. The directing function is performed at every level of management. It is performed in the context of superior subordinate relationship, and every manager in the organization performs his duties both as a superior and a subordinate, except at the top. Directing is a continuous process and it continues throughout the life of the organization. A manager needs to give orders to his subordinates and motivate, lead, and guide them on a continuous basis. Directing initiates at the top level and follows to bottom through the hierarchy. It emphasizes that a subordinate is to be directed by his own superior only. The importance of directing can be gauged by the statement that directing is the heart of the management. Just as heart supplies blood to every organ of the living body, directing puts all other management functions in action. Directing is one of the most complex functions of management as it deals with people whose nature is quite complex. Because of this reason, effective directing is really an art which can be learned and perfected through long experience. However, managers may follow some principles while directing their subordinates, which can be divided into two parts, that is, principles which relate to the purpose of directing and principles which are related to the directing process. Now, moving on to the MCQs. Which of the following is not an element of directing? A. Motivation, B. Communication, C. Delegation, or D. Supervision. So, the correct answer here is C, that is delegation. The four main elements of directing include supervision, motivation, leadership, and communication. Supervision can be split into two parts, that is, super and vision. Super means over and above, while vision means an art of seeing anything, which can be an object or an idea. Thus, supervision means overseeing from above. In the context of directing, supervision involves overseeing the performance of subordinates and guiding and instructing them to ensure that the intended results are achieved. Sometimes confusion can arise between directing and supervision. The basic reason for such a confusion is the context in which the term supervision is used. Therefore, the two terms, directing and supervision, differ in terms of context and content. The term supervision is used in two ways. First, it is used as an element of directing, and therefore every manager in the organization performs the function of supervision irrespective of his level in the hierarchy. In this context, supervision involves overseeing and guiding the efforts of subordinates to achieve the stated objectives. Thus, the scope of supervision is much more limited as compared to that of directing, which includes motivating and leading the employees as well as communicating with them. Secondly, the term supervision is used to denote the functions performed by supervisors, which are the personnel between management and operatives, also known as the low management level. When supervision is used in this context, it includes all supervisory functions, which includes planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling, with various emphasis on different functions. Moving on to the next question. Which of the following is not among the behavioral pattern adopted to provide direction to subordinates? And the options are A. Autocratic, B. Participative, C. Free rein, or D. All of the above. So the correct answer here is D. That is, all of them are among the patterns adopted to provide direction to the subordinates. Besides order and instructions, a superior provides direction to his subordinates by adopting a particular behavioral pattern. He may adopt one of the three behavioral patterns, which includes autocratic, participative, and free rein. So let us look at them one by one. In terms of autocratic pattern, the superior gives orders and instructions in detail as he does not involve his subordinates in the decision-making process. Therefore, there is a gap between decision maker and the implementer. In order to make a decision fully understandable, the superior is required to provide detailed instructions. Coming to the participative pattern, in this case, it is also known as the consultative pattern. In this case, that decision making is a joint process between a superior and his subordinate. Therefore, they understand the decision and how it can be implemented. In such a case, detailed order and instructions are not required. While in the case of a free rein pattern, which is just opposite of the autocratic pattern, subordinates are given authority to take decisions within the broad guidelines provided by the superior. In this case, the superior does not give orders and instructions for doing specific work except the broad guidelines for arriving at decisions or results. Moving on to the next question. Directing involves dealing with human beings, and it is not necessary that every human being may react positively to a directing technique. Therefore, there are dash type of models of man which provide assumption about human behavior. And the options are A 4, B 3, C 5, and D 2. So the correct answer here is A, that is, there are 4 models of man. A model of man explains what a person needs and how he behaves to satisfy these needs. There are, as I said, 4 main models of man, which includes rational man, social man, self-actualizing man, and the complex man. Coming to the rational man is based on the premise that an individual tries to match his efforts and rewards in terms of financial incentives, which he is likely to get for putting in the effort. Thus, he will react positively if the reward is at least equal to his effort. If the reward is lower than the effort, he will not make an effort to get the reward. The assumptions in the case of rational man includes that an individual is motivated by financial incentives and he is willing to do the things which maximize economic returns. In the context of organization, individual relationship, the organization controls the financial incentives. The feelings of an individual are essentially irrational and must be controlled in order to ensure rationality in his behavior. Since feelings of the individuals affect his behavior, attempt is made to design the organization in such a way that it controls individuals' feelings, consequently avoiding the unpredictability of his behavior. In case of a social man, the doctrine is based that an individual being a part of society is influenced by social forces and seeks satisfaction of his social needs. In this case, the assumptions include that an individual is motivated by his social needs and his efforts are directed towards maintaining social relationships. He is more responsive to group pressures and sanctions rather than the control by organizational prescriptions, as he values social relationships much higher than economic rewards which are being offered by the organization. He will obey the superior orders so long as they are in conformity to his social needs. The management practices based on the assumption of a social man are quite different from the management practices which are based on the assumption of a rational man. Moving on to the self-actualizing man, it is based on the doctrine that people have a lot of potential which can be used to achieve something unique. The assumptions include that self-actualization is the ultimate need of an individual and he makes efforts to satisfy this need. He moves from immaturity to maturity by adopting appropriate behavior. He is primarily self-motivated and self-controlled. Therefore, any external control creates the situation of maladjustment for him and his performance tends to be disturbed. The management practices based on assumptions of self-actualizing man involve giving more freedom for people to work and providing challenging jobs to them which are unique in some way and can maximize their potential. While in case of a complex man, the theory suggests that rational, social and self-actualizing models are simplistic assumptions of people and their behavior. They assume that an individual will behave according to a certain set pattern if the condition for behavior is given. The behavior of man can be understood and predicted depending on the assumptions made. However, researchers have demonstrated that it is not so. First, there are many complex variables which determines a human's behavior. These variables themselves are quite unpredictable. Second, even if the cause-effect relationship is established between the variables and behavior, it is not necessary that everyone will behave accordingly because of individual differences. Thus, the human behavior is known to be quite complex and it was not possible to predict human behavior accurately. Therefore, the assumptions include that individuals have diverse type of needs and they differ in terms of intelligence, personality, attitudes, values, and emotions. Thus, the behavior of people differs considerably in a same situation. A manager can take clue for managerial actions in two ways. First, he must realize that there is no action which can be utilized successfully in all situations. This is the basic theme of the contingency approach of management. Secondly, he should differentiate people on the basis of various factors and must adopt actions which may affect different people positively. Moving on to the next question. Consider the statements, which of them is correct? Theory X assumes that human beings are inherently distasteful towards work. Theory Y assumes that for the human beings, work is natural as play. Second, as Theory X, people have little capacity for creativity, while as per Theory Y, the capacity for creativity is distributed in the people. And the options are A, 1 only, B, both 1 and 2, C, only the second one, or D, none of them is correct. So the correct answer here is B, that is both 1 and 2 are correct. So the difference between two set of assumptions of theory X and theory Y can be visualized as follows. Theory X assumes that human beings are inherently distasteful towards work, while theory Y assumes that for human beings all work is natural as play. In case of theory X, it emphasizes that people do not have ambitions and try to avoid responsibility in jobs, while the assumption under theory Y is just the reverse. According to theory X, most people have little capacity for creativity, while according to theory Y, the capacity for creativity is widely distributed in the people. In case of theory X, motivating factors are lower order needs, while in theory Y, the higher order needs are more important for motivation, though unsatisfied, lower needs are also important. In the case of theory X, the people lack self-motivation and require to be externally controlled and closely supervised to get maximum output from them. While in the case of theory Y, people are self-directed and creative and prefer self-control. Theory X emphasizes on a scalar chain system and centralization of authority in the organization, while Theory Y emphasizes decentralization of authority and greater participation in the decision-making process. Coming to the last one, while Theory X emphasizes on autocratic leadership, Theory Y emphasizes on democratic leadership. Moving on to the next question. Who among the following characterize the assumptions about human nature while characterizing these assumptions into Theory X and Theory Y? And the options are A. William Auchi, B. Douglas McGregor, C. Frederick Herzberg, or D. Elton Mayo. So the correct answer here is B, that is Douglas McGregor. He introduced the Theory X and Theory Y in his book The Human Side of Enterprise. According to McGregor, managers make certain assumptions about human nature while directing people that may be neither consciously crystallized nor overtly stated. However, these serve the purpose of predicting human behavior. The basic assumptions about human behavior may differ considerably because of the complexities of factors influencing this behavior. So McGregor characterized these assumptions into 2 points, that is theory X and theory Y. The theory X is the traditional theory of human nature. He made the assumptions in this case, which include that management is responsible for organizing the elements of an organization, which includes money, materials, equipment, and people. With regard to people, management directs their efforts, motivates them, controls their actions, and modifies their behavior to fit the needs of the organization. Without this active intervention by management, people would be passive. The average man is considered indolent by nature and works as little as possible. He lacks the ambition, dislikes responsibility, and prefers to be led. He is considered inherently self centered and indifferent to organizational needs. Of these assumptions about human nature are negative in their approach. Managers subscribing these views attempt to structure, control, and closely supervise the employees. They feel that the external control is most appropriate for dealing with irresponsible and immature employees, while in case of theory Y, the external control and threat of punishment are not only means for bringing about effort towards organizational objectives. Man will exercise self-direction and self-control to achieve objectives to which he is committed. The commitment to organizational objectives is a function of the rewards which are associated with achievement of organizational objectives. The most significant of such awards are the satisfaction of ego and self-actualization needs. The average human being learns under proper conditions to not only accept but to seek responsibility. The capacity to exercise a relatively high degree of imagination, ingenuity, and creativity is the solution of organizational problems. Under the conditions of modern industrial life, the intellectual potentialities of the average human being are only partially utilized. The assumptions of theory Y suggest a different approach in management. It emphasizes the cooperative endeavor of management and the employees. The attempt is to get maximum output with minimum amount of control and direction. Generally, Generally, no conflict is visible between organizational goals and individual goals. Thus, the attempt of employees, which are in their best interests, are also in the interests of the organization. So that's it for this lecture, but prior to ending it, Educate 247 brings you a comprehensive course for RBI Grade B 2020, which covers relevant subjects such as economic and social issues, finance and management, along with comprehensive coverage of current affairs. So you can log onto the website to avail the benefits of the full video course. Thank you and happy learning.